Yeah. Hi, how you doing? I'm Tom. Pleased to meet you. Hi. It's okay, we're just killing time until you got here. So good, so good. They're still coming in. Hi. I missed you. I am Tom, as you've heard. I am a #1 New York Times best-selling author. Ooh, ah. And I do things like have Superman and Batman punch each other in the face. So I'm going to start by pressing this button. Oh, it's already pressed. You've twisted my... Look, there you go. This is what I'm calling this now. That is the name of this thing. Quick show of hands, who here has read comics? Yes. Quick show of hands, who hasn't? I love how many hands didn't go up at the first one and also didn't go up at the second one. It's good. I'm not admitting to that. Thanks for the people who admitted to it. So generally, as a comic book writer, the first thing people want to know about me is how the hell did you get to where you are? So I thought I'd quickly explain. It's the standard route. I dropped out of school or left by mutual consent. In about year 11, but probably should have been year 10, I stuck around for a few more months. I was not academically inclined. I was one of those people who would go and write up a tree instead of sit in a classroom. So following the standard formula, I dropped out of school. I became a childcare worker. I then became a professional juggler for about 10 years. I used to eat fire and juggle knives for a living. That's a thing people can do and still survive. I'll quickly demonstrate. I have a chair. I'm going to balance this on my face just to prove to you that I'm not making stuff up. Cool? But you have to clap and cheer and whoop and applaud. Not yet. I haven't done anything. I don't need your pity. Hang on. Here we go. It's really heavy. This is poorly advised. All right. So yeah, not very academically inclined. So I dropped out. I did a lot of theater. I grew up in youth musicals. I was a singer, an actor. I did musical stuff. I taught circus and drama and writing to kids. And then I wrote a play called The Example, which was actually on here at the Arts Centre. And that won the biggest short play competition in the world. And it was about an unattended briefcase on Flinders Street Station. And I went on the internet searching for somebody to help me write comics because I knew back then that comics are the greatest storytelling medium on earth, really. And I wanted people to collaborate with me. So what I did is I went on the internet and I asked for artists to help me turn my plays into comics. And I got, I don't know if you've been on the internet, but I got destroyed for asking for help. But one very lovely man called Colin Wilson, a god amongst us, said, "Leave him alone, guys. Do you want to have a coffee?" And I got together with this guy, and it turns out he started on 2000 AD with a guy called Dave Gibbons on Road Trooper. Dave Gibbons, if you don't know, did Watchmen, little book. And they're very good mates. And he actually illustrated a comic of mine called The Example about a briefcase on Flinders Street Station. And that went out, and that comic, believe it or not, about a briefcase on Flinders Street Station, got me a job writing Star Wars. You can see the direct correlation, yeah? Drop out of school, juggler, briefcase, Star Wars, easy. It's the classic story. So I wrote a series called Star Wars Invasion. I wrote some multi-award-winning series. I killed Boba Fett. I turned my son into a Jedi. He's used to that now. And then I got a bit of notoriety on that, and I ended up working on a book called The Authority. If you don't know The Authority, these are like superheroes who are hardcore left-wing. They have a Superman and a Batman who are married to each other. They're the sort of people that go into Chechnya and just kick out the Russians. And that's how they fight crime. So that was a very good gig. And then I got a gig on the worldwide #1 best-selling comic Injustice Gods Among Us. This is a story about Superman becoming a dictator of the world. And technically, it was not supposed to be successful. It was supposed to be tied into a computer game, and these never do well. But I really wanted to tell big stories. I was hired for 16 issues, 16 weeks, and it's now in year 4. But it's okay, I've quit now. Quit while you're ahead. So I got to tell stories in this that people who don't know comics may not understand. These kids, okay, comic books aren't for kids anymore. There's a thing that says comics aren't just for kids. Generally, comics aren't for kids at all. I will not let my kids read half my comics. In Justice, I've had Green Lantern fly into the United States and fly into Congress and tell them to stop being idiots over the budget during the government shutdown. I've had them fly into Syria. I've had Wonder Woman in Mogadishu refugee camps, killing generals who are raping women. We've had Superman and Wonder, like people in capes, tights, yeah? Doing stuff like that, which is fun. But what happened with Injustice is it was weekly, which meant they didn't have time to edit me. Which was fantastic. So like, why did 2 of our female superheroes just marry each other, Tom? Moving on! Next week. Good times. So yeah, and then I got to work on a book called Earth 2, where I got to create a black Superman and a Filipino Aqua woman. And now we'll take a little bit of a detour. I'm just checking the time. We don't have long, it sucks. So back when I was writing Star Wars, I went over to San Diego Comic-Con for the first time ever. If you haven't been to San Diego Comic-Con, it's a kilometer. She's trying to get your attention. Just here. She's here. San Diego Comic-Con is a kilometer long. It's 140,000 people, a kilometer long and double story. And you can't move or breathe. And all of your heroes are there. And it's terrifying. And when I first got there, I walked onto the floor, and that first image I showed you of Star Wars, Luke Skywalker doing this, that was from the floor to the ceiling when I walked in. And I was like, okay. And I was sharing cover artists with Joss Whedon at the time, so I got to talk to him about that. And I'm wearing my little backpack going, hi, Joss. And I was terrified, absolutely terrified to talk to anybody there. But I did talk to a guy called Joe Kelly, who, if you don't know Joe Kelly, he's about to do a movie called I Kill Giants based on one of his comics, which I personally love. It made me cry on a plane in the middle of 3 people, 3 total strangers. But I did get to talk to this guy called Joe Kelly, and he told me what he knew at that point in time was, that's great that you're writing Star Wars, Tom, but if I knew then what I know now, I'd be creating my own work. And that's what you should be doing too. Now, he knows a little bit about that because he and a bunch of his friends created a guy called Ben 10, which is now a multi-billion-dollar franchise. They also created Big Hero 6. So they know a little bit, yeah? So I took his advice, which he wasn't expecting. And 2 years later, I came back and I handed him my book, The Deep. Now, The Deep is about, it's about water, strangely enough. It's about a multiracial family of underwater explorers who live on a submarine and their adventures. Get that? Yep. I wrote it because comics aren't for kids. And I wanted something that I could share with my children, that I could read and enjoy with them, not just safely, boring written, yes, we wrote this for kids, but really we didn't think about who we were writing this for and we just wanted to get money. Here's some people being punched, but looking happy about it. I wanted something that was truly all ages, and so I created The Deep. Now, The Deep has done quite well. The Deep, that's not it. Oh yeah, I also worked on Ironman, but I wasn't going to talk about that. I'm currently writing Ironman. I'm the guy who writes Ironman in the world. That's weird, right? Like, that is very weird. He's big at the moment. And there he is fighting Daredevil, who's also kind of big at the moment because he's the #1 rated show on Netflix. Anyway, and there's Pepper Potts kicking his ass. Yeah, he's turned evil. We won't go into it. The Deep. Now, nobody's allowed to see this. Put your cameras away. So, this is The Deep. This is the multi-award winning book. And this is the 26-episode CG animated series that will be on worldwide later this year. Yeah, right? And as well as writing Ironman, as well as writing Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, I'm the head writer of that TV show. So I don't sleep. That's a thing. At 4:30 this morning, I gave up on my deadline and went to bed and thought about this speech. And they lay there like this. Sleep, Tom, this is really stupid. So, this is the deep. And this is what I wanted to sort of bring into the world. And it's great that it's happening now. Pretend you never saw that. That poster there is actually not for the public. I forgot. I put it in a slideshow. Pretend you're not the public. Yeah, shh, don't tell anyone. None of you have ever heard of the internet, right? Good, okay. So, this was legible when I first put it on there. Something went wrong. So, back to the point. Comics, the greatest storytelling medium on earth, really. I had notes. I should actually check them. Talk amongst yourselves. No, don't. So, comics. I find when I'm talking about comics is I often have to talk about, I feel I have to legitimize them to people, which is insane. It's absolutely insane. Comics are enormous all around the world. If you go to Japan, everybody reads manga. If you go to France, 17% of fiction is comics. It's only in places like Australia that it's kind of like, what? What's with, I'm assuming comics are just like tights, capes, Syria, killing generals in Mogadishu. But that's because you're learned now. I mentioned before that comics aren't for kids. Comics have been predominantly in America written for 18 to 45-year-old white men. This, fortunately, is changing. And it is swinging hugely. And the big companies in America are finally discovering this as well. We now have 48% readership are women, which I think is pretty huge. It's good. Yes, the people who went and didn't clap, you should have gone with it. Anyway, they are also written, created, drawn far more by women, which is huge. They are written for women, and they are written not just for women, but for everybody. So that's the thing that I'd like everybody to take away, that comics actually are for everybody. There are people still who say, dismissively, I don't read comics. Now, to me, that's insane. It's like some attempt to be highbrow, but like the higher your brow goes, the smaller your mind gets. It's... Thanks, I just thought of that then. Oh, it's far cleverer than I meant it to be. It is to say you don't read comics. I hear that, and it's like you've just said, I don't read books. I don't watch movies. I don't eat food. It's weird. Comics aren't a genre. I understand if you don't like romance novels. I don't understand, but I understand if you don't like fantasy novels. I understand if you're slightly prejudiced against something. But ignoring an entire storytelling medium is insane. Now, there are people very, very concerned about literature, about literacy levels in this country. Everybody here, most people here should know that one of the greatest ways to get children to read is through picture books, yes? Imagine if there were picture books aimed at adults. Imagine what that could do for literacy. Hey, guess what? There are. I bet you didn't see that coming. It's true. They are written for adults. They're written by adults for a very adult audience. And they're engaging and they're exciting. And this is what I think people need to realize. It's that comics are very, very exciting. They are page turners. But they're not always. Not all comics are the same. There are terrible comics and there are great comics. Just like there are terrible books and there are great books. There are fantastic authors. I'm sure most of you have heard of Neil Gaiman. Yes? So, he has written wonderful, wonderful comics. That's how he started. He's written a series called The Sandman. I suggest you look it up. If you like horror, there are horror comics. If you like fantasy, there are fantasy comics. If you like romance, there are romance comics. There are comics for everyone. And more, I think you'll find that comics are completely and utterly owning pop culture. If you go to the movies at the moment, it will be to see, sorry, a comic book movie as a general thing. I don't entirely understand the reason, but at the moment, comics and superheroes and the stories being made in comics are desired by people. Possibly it's because we're disenfranchised with our governments and we want to see like superheroes taking over and just being nice. Yeah. But I won't look too far into that. But it is. Comics now dominate pop culture. And what people are seeing on the screens, there's books about that. If you go to see the Avengers, believe it or not, Joss Whedon has always also written X-Men. He wrote them for years. If you see a Kevin Smith movie, Kevin Smith writes it. Neil Gaiman has books out. He had a book out last week. He had a comic out last week. Who's seen Fight Club? You're not supposed to admit to that. That's a trick question. No, Fight Club 2 came out as a comic this week by Chuck Palahniuk. I can't say his name. Which is interesting because nobody should have been talking about Fight Club 2. So comics are huge. And if there's anything I'd like all of you to take away from today, it's that, first of all, if you've never read a comic, go and read them, and then push them on other people, yeah? We shouldn't have to justify their legitimacy. They are huge. They are widely read all around the world, and yet there is still a stigma here in Australia. Hi! It's 5 minutes, I understand. I'm just, like, pretending. She did this. Anyway. Looking at my notes. This exciting for you? It's the top of my hat. Sorry? Oh, an extra 5 minutes. Good. Okay. Now, what I find every time I do these is that people are are full of questions, and I feel terrible talking about myself and talking about it and, stomping comics at you. So I'm going to throw it open right now to probably 2 or 3 questions to spark me. Anybody have a question? Yes. Yes, in American comics. Yes. Yes. They're sexualized in some comics. I talked about this earlier. Not all comics. So the question was, why are women attracted to something that sexualizes women? Now, there are still comics that sexualize women. There are women wearing scantily clad things. I've had to yell at people because I've had a cover where a woman's standing on a guy but with her legs open. There is a culture of that, but it's changing. We are finding more and more, the new Batgirl that DC is doing is completely covered wearing leather and just looks like she's about to, do a ride off on a motorbike. She's not wearing a skin-tight thing anymore. And more we're finding this. The comics are now more and more written by women and drawn by women, and they're more aware. They're putting that out there. Ms. Marvel at the moment is a young Muslim girl and selling like crazy. Selling so much that buses, I want to say in San Francisco, had her plastered all over them and anti-Muslim signs that were paid for with her face on them. They're worrying people, which is exactly what good literature should do. Now, yes, that's a concern. And yes, there are still people in that. And yes, there are still people who are living in comics who think it's the 1950s. But there are a lot of people who don't. It's changing, promise. I'm good. Yes. When's the Deep 3 coming out? Damn it! Why I opened up to questions. So I just wrote a 26-episode CG animated series with a group of writers. I'm really tired. It will come. First of all, you will see the prequel, just between you and me and all these people. Yeah, you will see one set in the 1800s about their ancestors. Another question. Yes? Yes? What is a writer going to do? I suggest you go on the internet and just stumble into a forum. No. Look, the best way, I think part of your question is, how do I make comics? The best way to do it, yes, is to collaborate with an artist. Find someone to go to DeviantArt, just hit people up, and remember that artists are artists, and that's what they do for a living. So when I was a professional juggler, I used to get money in my hat, but a lot of the time I didn't, because people would go, yeah! and I wouldn't eat. So remember that artists need to be paid as well. And if they're a starting up artist, then they don't need to be paid as well as, huge professionals, but they need money. So if you can find an artist and collaborate and create a comic with them, that's how you make comics and that's how you get seen. Any more questions? Yes? The slide behind me. That is Injustice, believe it or not. I wrote Injustice because it was about Superman becoming the dictator of the world, and I'm a huge Superman fan. I wanted to write one issue when he wasn't a dick. And that was the one. And that small boy is me, by the way. It was very, that's the point where Superman, he's seen him fall off his bike, he's taken him home, the kids pretended it's not his home, so that he's like, no, actually, we live over there. Superman's like, are you just lying to me, so I'll fly around a bit more? He's like, yep. And that was totally me. So yes, that was in Injustice. Injustice 30, year 1. Yes. Am I working on other original things? Yes, I am. I think it's a bit, when you work on massive franchises, it's very easy to be caught up with them. Like when you've got Robert Downey Jr.'s voice in your head, you're like, yeah, I'm going to write more Robert Downey Jr. But you have to keep creating your own things just for your own soul and just to put more out there because the deep could happen again. I mean, this thing's going to be worldwide and seen by millions and millions of people, and I'd like to do that again with other people and other things. More questions. We don't have long. Yes? Oh, good. The haircut is good, man. Is that the question? No, sorry, yeah? How can libraries do comics well? Who has comics in their library? Put your hands down if you haven't had comics stolen from your library. So yes, leave your hands up if you've had comics stolen from your library. Okay, yeah. I find when people are stealing things, it's a good sign. This is a weird thing. I know it's a weird thing to get our heads around, but I've seen libraries who've gone, we don't stock graphic novels because they get stolen. You don't get stolen. You don't stock things because people desire them so much that they're taking them illegally. Okay, that tells you that there are young people without money who are reading, yeah, and who probably feel quite bad that they haven't returned something on time and don't have the $2 to pay the fine. But stock graphic novels. Go on the internet. I think we spoke about the internet before, yeah? You've heard of the internet. If you haven't heard of the internet, check it out. I think it's going to be big. Google internet, and that's how you'll learn about the internet. The internet is a wonderful resource. Find out what people are reading at the moment. If you have a favorite author, find out if they've done any comics. If you like horror, go to Joe Hill, who's Stephen King's son, and check out his latest comics. Like, there are some incredible things there. And as you found, because they're being stolen, young people want to read them. So you, as librarians, can stock them. And I don't know what happens if they get stolen. That I don't understand how libraries work, but hopefully you're insured. You insured? Are we out of time? Is it a really good question that I can answer with a yes or no? Go. Essential comic lines for a school library, come and talk to me afterwards, and I will give you a massive list. Wait, remember, comics, the single greatest storytelling medium in the world, really? I didn't even get to explain to you why, but trust me, they are. And please push them on people. Embrace them, get the word out. Make people love words and pictures. Thank you.